Hey everyone, hope you have an amazing day. This is FC with CappersDirect.com here to talk to you guys and give you guys a little bit of some breaking news that happened in the UFC. But we're going to get into a little more in depth on the news. I think there are a lot of outlets right now that are putting different information out there, but I'll give you the best information we have right now on Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou. What happened to Francis Ngannou? Why is he no longer in the UFC? We got the answers right here coming up, so stick around. So let's look a little bit into what happened. So the T-Mobile Arena went ahead and leaked the new poster of Jon Jones versus Cyril Gane. It's going to happen on March 4th, UFC 285, and the UFC was extraordinarily upset. I feel bad a little bit for the T-Mobile Arena, the employees that put this up, but at the same time, hey man, stuff happens like this. Stuff happens, leaks happen. The UFC's already dealt with it. They're already putting stuff out there. It was accidental. And as of right now, the title fight for the vacant, and I will say it again, the vacant UFC heavyweight championship is going to be fought between Jon Jones and Cyril Gane on March 4th. Huge thing. Because then we have what happened to Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou has been trying to get this fight for 2 years. He's been negotiating for 2 years. And we'll get a little bit into the Francis Ngannou situation a little bit more because it's very imperative on the things that he's asking for. But at the same time, I think it's good to see both sides. So looking at Jon Jones has been training for 2 years. He's been pumping up for 2 years. He's been getting bigger, trying to get bigger. And so he's been on the sidelines, and the UFC asked for Ngannou to, what does he want? Like, what does he need for this fight to happen? Jon Jones versus Stipe was going to happen. Stipe had to pull out. So Ngannou, Jon Jones, that was the thing. That was the matchup everybody's been wanting. That's the super fight everybody's been wanting. And we were finally, the negotiations were happening, but they were falling through. And then Jon Jones was ready to fight. I think it was like December 10th or so. Jon Jones was targeting that date to fight. He was targeting most of the end of last year to fight and just waiting, sitting there waiting, training more, waiting. The UFC was like, look, we can't make Jon Jones wait anymore. We just can't do it. Francis Ngannou, you know what? What you're asking for is beyond what we can give you. So go ahead. Go pursue. We're going to go ahead and release you. The heavyweight champion of the world, the guy who dominated the division, the guy who knocked out Stipe Miocic, the guy who took out Cyril Gane when Francis Ngannou was hurt. That's the guy the UFC's like, you know what? Go pursue other avenues because you don't want to fight this level of competition. That isn't necessarily true. I can see where the UFC sees that, but we're going to get into that more. So Jon Jones sitting there, ready to fight. He's been waiting. Francis Ngannou has been stalling, but the stalling has been because of the contract situation. And who better to talk to you about the contract situation than me? I've seen UFC contracts before. I know what Francis Ngannou is talking about. Francis Ngannou is just coming off of having surgery. He's a little bit overweight. I think he's somewhere above 300 pounds. And he was, during this time off in which he was negotiating with the UFC, he allowed other people to talk to him and get in his ear. And in turn, he got to visit the PFL. He got to watch people fight for $1 million. And he's sitting there being like, what's going on? And then he's got boxers that are stepping up being like, I can knock you out. I can take you out, Francis. And if you want it, big payday. So Francis is sitting there being like, all right, I need surgery. All right, I had surgery. I'm a little bit overweight. And the UFC is not meeting me where I want them to meet me on my contract. So I'm out. I want out. What can we do? What can we do to make this happen? I no longer want to fight here. Unless you guys are going to give me what I want. Unless you guys are going to submit to my needs. And that puts the UFC in a very, very, very tough position because the UFC, they have contracts and these people are individual contracts. So let's get into why Francis Ngannou, let's get into a little bit of his contract situation. I won't reveal too much. I'll just try to reveal some of the things that I know and some of the things that have been said, some of the things that have been said to me, some of the things that have been said in the media, and try to put it all together for you guys. And in the end, I mean, we see Francis Ngannou, he sees his contract, he reads his contract, he sees that he's an independent contractor. Independent contractors normally don't just fight for one company. Those are more employees. when these contracts get out, the fighters get not about agreement, but they get a UFC contract that says, all right, you're going to fight 3 fights in the UFC. This is how much you're going to get paid for each fight. Boom, boom, boom. Now, back in the day when managers didn't necessarily know they didn't know ways that they can negotiate in the contract. So back then they used to just keep fighters on for like 3 years. So if a fighter had 3 fights and he went ahead and decided to fight one and then wouldn't fight another one for 3 years, oh well, he's still under the UFC contract. When you're ready to fight, come see us. No health insurance, no money being made in the meantime, right? For what Francis Ngannou is trying to say, is an independent contractor, I should be able to make money the way I want. The UFC is like, you can. Go get sponsors. Go do all this stuff. Go do all the stuff that you would be able to do as an individual contractor. But we have a vested interest in protecting you and making sure you're not going out there doing crazy stuff and going to other organizations. And they have an interest in protecting their name and protecting their brand and protecting their image. And so, you can't go out there and fight other people. You can't go out there in other promotions and fight. That's not how this works for the UFC. That's not how their contract system has worked for all these years. They're independent contractors that are only able to fight under the UFC banner, but are still able to do other things. They're still able to do movies. They don't have to ask permission from the UFC. They're able to do commercials. They're able to do a lot because the UFC contract is so loose. But Francis is like, hey, I don't have health insurance. I'm a heavyweight getting punched in the head. And I don't have a retirement. This deal, the UFC was ready. The UFC is not cheap. The UFC doesn't treat people that way. The UFC, all right, I can see where some people are like, yeah, well, I've seen some of these contracts. But when it comes down to these bigger fights, the UFC presents offers that trump past offers within their own organization. They don't necessarily go out and be like, oh, what does Bellator do? And what's they're offering over here? They look at their own structure and say, what have you got paid before? What do people who are winning like you do get paid? All right, let's negotiate. All right, hey, now you want to be smart and not fight. Put in your contract that you have to fight once a year in order to make sure you have money. Now the UFC is like, oh, we're flexible. We'll put in there some timelines. So there's some fighters that have timelines, or some that are just on there that just say, hey, you fight 3 fights, and if you don't ever fight all 3, hey, you can retire and you're still we still have your rights. So there's still those contracts being out there. There are ones that have time limits on them. You don't know which one's which. You don't know who negotiated which or what's going on. But at the end of the day, man, Francis is just seeing the PFL guys, the guys that are making $1 million. They want him in the PFL. So the UFC is sitting there saying, and you're going to hear this a lot, Francis Ngannou just didn't want to fight. He's no longer wanting to fight the level of competition they fight in the UFC. We were going to make him rich beyond measure. We were going to provide him with the ability to be the highest paid heavyweight in UFC history. We were setting up that groundwork. And instead, this guy wants health insurance. This guy wants to revolutionize and change our complete business model. Not going to happen. And the UFC did give in to some of those things that Francis said, but some of those key things he just kept hitting on, and I don't think he understood why the UFC couldn't do it. He was like, let's change everything. And I don't think that's going to happen here. And so the UFC bet as much as they could until they were just like, Francis, look, this is ridiculous. It's been 2 years. Like, John Jones has been on the sidelines. This guy's ready to fight. This is the GOAT potentially of all time. And you're sitting here making him wait. We're done. We're done waiting. Look, this is 2 years. You're not even ready to fight. Like, can you even fight in March? Like, I don't even think you could. You would need all this. There's so much going on with Francis that the UFC is looking at and like, yeah, he just doesn't want to fight. So that's their perspective, and their perspective is warranted in a way, and you can see how it's warranted. But again, Francis Ngannou, man, fans are upset. Francis is nervous currently but he's also been told by a lot of people, like, don't worry, this will be fine, you'll be fine, you're a superstar, you got this. Honestly, this is what I think is going to happen. I think Francis Ngannou is going to come up, and I think he's probably going to try to get a boxing match with Tyson Fury. I know he's been talking about it for a very long time. He thinks he can get a big payday. He thinks he can secure himself and secure his lifestyle and his family and his future. Additionally, he's got the PFL. He's got all these different organizations that would. He's such a big name right now, and that's sort of the thing he's looking at. I'm still a big name. Why not allow me to go test free agency when I'm a big name? Allow me to go out there and go make the money I want to make. It's not that he doesn't want to fight the John Joneses in the top level competition. He's just like, I want to get paid for it like other people get paid for top fights. It's just we're not there with the UFC yet. And I understand, like, he's like, well, it's been enough time since they've sold the company. They're making all this money. Like, what's going on? Why don't they pay us like they do boxers? Man, the pay is constantly increasing. It's getting better. I can see why fighters have a problem, but knowing the inside of the UFC and having friends in the UFC, I also know where they're coming from. I know exactly where they're coming from and the conflict here. But at the end of the day, hey, man, we get John Jones versus Ciryl Gane, and I'm going to go ahead and break down the matchup a little bit for you guys just to give you a little bit extra. But, John Jones, he's got the wrestling, and he looks huge. He looks great. Francis Ngannou, he was training in Vegas. So the way this whole thing transpired is he was getting his training partner ready. It was already in the works that he was going to possibly fight Miocic, or, hey, this thing might fall through. Like, as the end of last year started rounding out, the UFC was like, this thing might fall through. Like, Ciryl Gane, how you feel about fighting John Jones? And Ciryl, I think on like January 14th, texted and said, John, where you at? And that tweet blew up. So, I mean, the UFC saw that and was like, let's do it. Like, hey, Gane, you're here. Do you want to do it? John Jones has been ready to fight, willing to fight. For 2 years, for really a year, he's been willing to fight. Last 6 months, he's on point. Gane, will you be ready in March? Gane was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm ready for the title shot. This is for the belt, right? I'm not have to fight anybody else. I get the belt, right? Yes, done deal. Put me on there. I'll be ready for March 4th. UFC 285, a card that really did need a big event like this big sort of super fight. It's not the biggest super fight because obviously Francis Ngannou versus John Jones is the super fight, right? But it's still up there. It's still a really great fight. Ciryl Gane might even be favored, which would be crazy because looking at it, John Jones has, if you look at the body of work, the stand-up is going to be in the Ciryl Gane corner. Ciryl Gane is he might even be the best heavyweight striker. It's so hard. I hate to say all time when it comes down to some of these things, but yeah, Gane may be the best heavyweight striker. I'm going to go ahead and say it in the UFC, best heavyweight striker of all time. I mean, so you can't sit there and give John Jones a striking edge, even though he's long and he's used to using those things. But John Jones will have a wrestling advantage. We saw Ciryl Gane taken down by Francis Ngannou, who's not a wrestler, when Francis Ngannou had a bad leg. I mean, we bet against Francis Ngannou. we knew a lot of things were wrong with Francis Ngannou coming in, and Ciryl Gane still lost that fight by decision at that. He let Francis Ngannou take him down in rounds 3, 4, and 5, and Francis took it. Ciryl was winning rounds 1 and 2. He was piecing them up. And I think John Jones is like, well, this is kind of an easier matchup, right? I mean, I don't know if I can take down Francis Ngannou. I think I can. I probably can. I know I can. Okay, I could take him down. But I know I can take down Ciryl Gane. Like, I feel like I could take that dude down easy. So let's see how the lines transpire. Let's see what goes down. At first, it's so funny. When this thing came out, I thought, hey, is the UFC like accidentally leaking stuff? Like, did they accidentally leak it so that it would put a fear in Francis Ngannou? But that's all the little conspiracy theories. Like, who knows? Who knows if that stuff's true? I know that the people I spoke with, they weren't in on it. They were very, very upset, and this was not supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to be. No heavyweight title fight is supposed to be announced like this. No super fight is supposed to be announced by the T-Mobile Arena putting a banner up. That's just not supposed to happen. So even if this was accidental, even if it was some a manipulation to try to get Francis Ngannou to turn the corner last minute, like, oh no, that was a mock-up. Like, that may not, that was a mistake. Francis Ngannou's still here. I just don't see it that way, man. I see this being locked in. I didn't see the contract of John Jones versus Gane, but I do know it is confirmed. Like, that is the fight. Unless something happens injury-wise, something crazy happens, this is going to be the fight on March 4th. So, again, guys, breaking news. That's all the stuff that I know, or a lot of the stuff that I know about Francis Ngannou. Some of the stuff is stuff that he said personally, and I can't get into everything. So, but I totally see his point. I totally understand where he's coming from. It's a myopic point. It's a little bit, but he's trying to be selfish, and he's got people around him that are like, dude, you're getting hit in the head every single time you go out there. You're risking your life. You have no health insurance. You have no retirement. You're getting paid a ton, but do you really know how to budget it? Do you really know how to invest it? Like, you may mess up a couple of times investing. Like, you need to be making bank right now when you can stack cash. Those people are in his ear. You know what happens. So, all right, guys, that's going to be it. Now, if you like this kind of content, be sure to give it a thumbs up, like the video, guys, turn your post notifications on, and comment down below, John Bones Jones. Just comment down below Bones. That's what we'll go with. Bones. Leave a comment down below, Bones, to make sure. I just want to make sure you guys listen to the end. There's so many people, and there's so many of you guys that click on the video but don't subscribe. Guys, you're missing out on money you could be making, on another income, actually. I gave out Sean Strickland in the middle of the week as a free play plus money. Those are the things you're missing out on. You're missing out on all the free plays that we accumulate and win here. Don't miss out. Don't be that person. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. So many of you guys are not subscribed. So many of you guys click and don't subscribe. So many of you guys click, don't comment, don't leave a like, and we have views up there, but just give it a thumbs up. Show us that you appreciate the work that we put into all this stuff. And I have to apologize. I ordered a lamp for my office, and I don't know if it was a prank, but this is what they gave me. They gave me a floor lamp. Okay, I will say I wanted an LED type lights. I wanted to do some things. It's jumping in the background. I wanted to, I'm going to fix that, by the way. I'll get that fixed. I'll get that handled. But I wanted a lamp just in here in the background and an LED lamp, and that's what they gave me. So every time I talk, it could bounce. I'm going to get that fixed up. I don't know. If you guys like the bounce, then let me know. But yeah, guys, subscribe, like the video, and comment down below Bones for this big fight. It's going to be a great day to win on March 4th, baby. Let's get it.